Right, part 4 of our series of videos on how to improve the fuel efficiency of your car. In this video, we're just going to quickly talk about, and it's really hardly ever gets discussed, what is actually the best RPM to create the best fuel efficiency for any cars. Now, I've owned quite a few cars, and I can give you a definitive number. The best RPM to give you the best fuel efficiency, I'll just switch my car on, is actually 1850 RPM. So it's on right now. The blue needle is pointing to just over 700, probably about 780, something like 780 RPM, right? It's times 1,000, that's what it says, times 1,000. So the best RPM is about, I'm trying to do it, just about, I would say about there, about 1,850 RPM. That's for all gears. For all gears, that is. So if you're in second gear, that would be your best fuel efficiency for your car. First gear, you will hardly ever travel in first gear all the time, but you may be in second gear all the time. I'll come to that in a minute. Third gear, same deal applies. Fourth gear, same deal applies. Fifth gear, same deal applies. Sixth gear, same deal applies. That 1,850 RPM is the sweet spot for all the cars I've ever driven. It may well be true, probably is also true for your car. Your maximum torque isn't going to be. Your maximum torque is probably going to be about between 3,000 and 4,000 RPM. We're not talking about power. We talk about fuel efficiency. So your car is most fuel efficient, in my opinion, and I've studied this for a while by checking my fuel consumption, my miles per gallon, at different RPMs, is 1,850. Round about where I had it. Okay. So also, that's that simple as that. Is that number? If you can maintain that number through wherever gear you are, you got the best fuel efficiency. But you can't really, because sometimes you got to keep up with traffic. So you got to speed up a bit, slow down a bit. But if you can on the motorway, you're on sixth gear, hit that 1,850, and you'll have your best fuel efficiency. Any less, you'll find. Right, sorry about the strange cut, but I've run out of battery. Anyway, picking up from where I left off. So 1,850 RPM is where I recommend for most cars to get their best fuel efficiency for a given gear. Doesn't matter what gear it is, whether it's first, second, third or fourth, fifth or sixth, in my opinion, that's the magic RPM. However, if you was on, say, a 30-mile-an-hour limit road, and you decided to, say, shift to third gear, may not give you exactly 1,850. In my Ford, it's at 30 mile an hour with the 30 mile an hour limit set on 30. It's about 1,600 RPM. So I'm below my sweet spot, and on the Honda it's way below. On third gear it's something like 1,500. So it depends from car to car. But if you can, for example, in my old Hyundai i20, I used to run it at 1,850 on fourth gear on a road that was permissible to be at 60. But I was doing roughly about 43 miles per hour, 43 miles per hour, and because it was usually on a country road, there was no cars in front or behind. I just steadily chugged it along. I got a great amount of the best fuel efficiency I could get. So obviously, if you're on a motorway or a main road and you're on sixth gear, you could be on 1,850, and with that RPM, I think it's the sweet spot, because if you were say at 1,700 RPM, you will find that on the motorway on 6th gear, if a slight incline came along, you would find that if you look at your miles per gallon, you'll see it drop significantly. It will just drop slight uphill. It will drop anything over. Say it was 2,000 RPM, it'll get over the hill a bit easier. But say 1,700, your miles per gallon will drop. But 1,850 thereabouts, it doesn't seem to drop. It seems to cope with it quite well. So another way of doing it is if you're on a motorway or on a fast stretch of road. Say for example you're on a 60 mile an hour limit, you're on 5th gear. You can use instead of your speed limiter, you can use your cruise control. You can set it until it's bang on 1,850. Same likewise on the motorway. For my Ford, it is, I think it's about 68 miles per hour. It's about, I think it's about that. That brings me neatly on to my next point. The most efficient gear is what I've got all these pictures of gearboxes. The most efficient gear for your car actually is the gear below the top gear. So what I mean by that is if you have a really old-fashioned 4-gear car, the 3rd gear is the most fuel efficient. If you've got a 5-gear car, which a lot of cars are, the 4th gear is the most fuel efficient. If you've got 6-gear car, which is the majority of cars these days, the 5th gear is the most fuel efficient gear. So the gears matter as well. Why is the one below the top gear the most fuel efficient? Reason being is usually that's the one that gives you 1-to-1. So one turn of the engine gives you 1 rotation of the crank. All right, so 1-to-1. And let me just put it a bit better. 1 turn of the engine gives you 1 final output of the turn of the drive shaft. That's probably a better way of putting it. So for a 6-gear car, 5th gear is the 1-to-1. 6th gear will give you, so you can't sort of crank it a little bit and it moves more. The drive shaft moves more than your turn of the engine, and obviously the lower gears you have to kind of put in loads of rotations to get a single rotation of the drive shaft. Many rotations of the engine to give you single rotation of the drive shaft. That would be the case of, say, 1st gear. And of course it varies between gears. So that's it for gears. Stay at 1,850 RPM. Try it. You'll see your miles per gallon boost up. One more thing. So this is my recommendation. Lots and lots of roads they start at the 20 mile an hour limit are 20 miles an hour, right, in London. You're not going to be playing around with the RPMs when you're driving along and with speed limiting roads like London. My recommendations to get your best fuel efficiency is 2nd gear in 20 miles per hour limit. That's a general rule of thumb. For 30 mile an hour limit, you guessed it, 3rd gear is the most fuel efficient. And I've driven a passenger around where I think I was on 30 mile an hour limit, and this guy was in the back just moaning. He was saying, I'm having panic attacks or something equivalent to saying something like that. This guy's not changing gear. He didn't really know me very well, and he's telling me teaching me that I should change gear. Little does he know, if you're on 30 mile an hour road, many driving instructors say get to 4th gear, don't they? They're absolutely, may have been true if you've only got a 4-gear car, but definitely not true if you've got a 5 or 6-gear car. That getting into 4th gear on 30 mile an hour limit will give you a lack of torque, and you'll actually find your fuel efficiency drop. So third gear on 30 mile an hour limit, fourth gear on 40 mile an hour limit, fifth gear on 50 mile an hour limit, and be on that limit. 60 mile an hour, be on the sixth gear, and anything above 60 is you should be on sixth gear. Simple as that. So those are my recommendations about gears and RPMs to give you the best fuel efficiency.